Hello again. Whoops. It's Becky with Bee Mom. We are making berry muffins. Now, I want to let you know, usually when you make cookies or cake or muffins or anything like that, there's a basic thing that's kind of true for most of them. You have to have some wet ingredients, some dry ingredients, and you have to have something what's called a rising agent. In regular bread, this is yeast. In all of these things that cook a little quicker, because bread takes all day because you got to let it rise and all of that kind of stuff. But if you're making cookies and cakes and muffins, these sorts of things, you can use either baking soda or baking powder. They both do slightly different things. We're going to use baking powder because we're making muffins, and personally I find that they come out much more moist when you do this. And so I am going to be typing out the recipe that I'm going to show you for our berry muffins that we're going to make. And when I do that, when I type it all out, I'll make sure I link it in the description for you. And let me show you what we're going to do here. We're going to make two things today. We're going to make the muffins, and then the other thing we're going to do is I have my thing, and we're going to make a fun treat. And then we're going to talk about some ways that you can actually use berries, and these will be fresh berries, in dinner sorts of things, which the one that I know best is salads, which I guess kind of makes sense if you think about it. But remember, we're trying to focus on the treat will be fat, and then we'll have wonderful berries with a delicious fat source, but the muffins will be carb. And so we're going to use things like Greek yogurt, which has, as we said, this is non-fat Greek yogurt, so we're going to use this. We're going to use some applesauce. And the only thing that has a little bit of like fat kind of thing in it is some eggs, but we're just going to put a couple in there so that wouldn't really affect either way because you're only using one or two. So I got several measuring items because we want to measure the wet things with something different than we want to do the dry things. There's a really famous cooking lady called Rachel Ray, and she always has a trash bowl, and I didn't think to pull one out, so we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to set ours aside, and that way I can put them in the sink to clean them up in a little bit. So we are going to start with our wet ingredients. Now, I am going to, for purposes of making it easier to show you, I'm just going to whisk it with my hand whisk, which is perfectly fine. If you like doing that, then you can do that because you can always use a regular spoon or something in order to, and I'm going to have a wooden spoon to mix it in when it's time to put the berries in. And I'll show you. We're going to have our pans ready to go. So I have my handy dandy muffin pans. I am going to go ahead and spray two just to be on the safe side in case we don't have it, in case we need more than one pan, but we will see how it goes. All right, so these are ready, and I'll show you what we do with those in a little bit when it's time. Let's pull our bowl back. Here we go. So here's what we're putting in: wet ingredients. 1 cup of non-fat Greek yogurt. So we'll put that in first. And I am messy a little bit with this stuff because that's the way I roll. All right. So we have our 1 cup of Greek yogurt. We have our 1 cup. This is you know, you can get those applesauce things. This is just applesauce. I think this one has a cinnamon flavor, which I really like in my muffins and stuff. So that'll add a little extra flavor to it, and it'll be delicious. So we've got our muffins. And this is, if you saw earlier how I made berry muffins, I used a gluten-free mix. This one will not be gluten-free. And I believe there is a little bit of sugar in this, but because we're doing one that has carbs in it, it's okay for us to have a little bit of sugar in this one. And then I'm gonna do, to make it go easier, I'm gonna do 2 eggs. So 1. And then 2. The eggs help hold things together as well as provide some protein. It's mixing up in the whole big batch of muffins, but it does add a little bit of protein. So let's see, do I have any more? Oh, yes. All right. So for sweetness, I am going to add a little bit of sugar, and I am going to use coconut sugar. And I have a 1/2 cup for coconut sugar. And then because I like them sweet, I'm going to add, this is monk fruit. I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of monk fruit. Because this is carb, we can do this. It's okay. If we were doing the fat one, we would not want to add the sugar because the sugar has a lot of carbs in it. So we're not going to do that. Now, I'm going to add my salt to the wet mixture. The salt can kind of go either in the dry or the wet. Lots of people add it with the dry, but I'm going to put a little with the wet. And I'm just putting a couple of shakes just to give it a little extra flavor. The reason I do that, if I were making this regular muffins and not low fat muffins, if I were doing regular muffins, this is what it looks like, see? Then I would add butter to it, and the butter would have salt in it. And some people like using unsalted butter and then adding salt to it, and I would prefer to add a little less salt and just use salted butter. So that's what I do. All right, so now we've got, oh, this is awesome. Now we've got this, and guess what it's time for? Oops, hey, I forgot vanilla. And vanilla. I'll just mix that in. If you want to measure it, if you pour it in the cup, in the lid, it's about a teaspoon. I generally just eyeball it. You can put a couple in if you really like vanilla flavor. And so that's good. So we'll add that in. Okay, now the vanilla's in too. All right, here we go with the dry ingredients. All right, and so we have some flour here. All right, you want to get your flour in your cup, 1 cup container. You just want to wiggle it a little so it's loose. Some people sift it in with the kind of flour that I'm using because I grind my own flour. I'm not going to sift it in, but we're going to start with 1 cup. And then you can use a measuring spoon to check this, but I have done this already. The spoons that we have, this actually is a measured teaspoon. So I can put that in, but we're gonna put it with baking powder. It works out to about 1 teaspoon per every cup. So because I like it really fluffy, I'm gonna add like 1.5 teaspoons because we've got 1 cup of flour already in there. And I'm gonna show you a trick with adding the other cup of flour because it goes along with adding our frozen berries because there's moisture in here with that. So here we go, mixing these up, making them yummy. All right, and this looks a little thin to me, so I'm gonna add a little bit of flour to bulk it up. So I've got about another 1/4 cup. I'm gonna add a little there like that. And I'm gonna put my berries. I'm gonna measure these, but you don't have to. Well, I say you don't have to. If you're not used to cooking, then measure them. Because if you get too many and it messes up with the baking process. All right, so we have berries. That's 1 cup. And that's about almost 2 full cups. You can do 2/3, that's fine. And then watch what we're gonna do. Whoop. Watch what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a little more of that. Flour, and we'll sprinkle it on top of the berries. Here's why. It will mix into this mixture much better if it has flour on it. This works well for frozen berries, for nuts, for raisins, for any kind of chips, chocolate chips, peanut butter chips, butterscotch chips. All of these things you mix up the mix, then you put a little of flour on the bottom, and then you put a little on top of what you're adding to it, and then when you mix it up, they mix in well and they don't completely fall to the bottom. And this needs just a tad more. It's still a bit thin, so it's another 1/4 cup. So altogether, I added about 1.5 cups of flour. And there we go. Now we're going to put them in our pan. Yummy. Okay. Okay, I'm going to put them in these baking tins. I have my scooper. I got berries that have really big strawberries, so I'm going to get one with a strawberry to put in the bottom, and then I'm going to add extra on top. Yeah, I think I'm gonna. When you fill muffin tins, you don't want to go all the way to the tippy top. Hang on, I'll show you. Hold on. All right, so see, I have a little bit of room on the top, so they're not all the way full to the top. That gives them room to rise when they do that. You want to do this if you use straight up muffin tins that you greased like these, because I used pan spray on them. Or you want to do that if you put the baking papers in there too. Either way, you want to do that. All right, so there's one batch. Here's 2. All right, so I finished filling them, but look at this. Uh-oh, one's empty. So a lot of times if you put it in like this, what you're going to end up with is muffins, and then you have one that's like all black. So in order to prevent that, this is just plain water from the tap. You just fill it about half full. Fill that muffin thing about half full, and it gives it just enough moisture. We're going to pop it in the oven because our oven is ready to actually do the work. So I'll be back in a minute to show you the other thing, and then to talk to you about some other ideas. And I will pop these in the oven, and when they are done, I will show them to you. All righty. Now for the second one. This one is more like a treat. This is our low carb with extra fat treat that we're gonna make. Now, for protein, here's the nice thing about this. Because this is low fat and it also has a low amount of carbs, you can use it for both things and it won't mess that up. Okay? This has more carbs than it does fat, of course, but it has such a low amount of carbs that it doesn't mess anything up. There's only 6 grams of carbs in a whole serving, which is 3/4 of a cup, and we're just putting a spoonful in for a little bit of protein. So we're gonna start with our cashew milk. I also like to use almond milk. I find cashew milk is a little bit creamier. And we are gonna just fill this up. This is a quick thing. This is in case you're like trying to do well and trying to eat healthy, and then you just go, daggone what I wouldn't give for a shake. You can do it. All right, so we're gonna put, this is ounces over here. So we're just gonna do, we're gonna do a little less than a cup, and that gives us something for everything to mix with. Okay, then no sugar this time. Just our monk fruit, or stevia is the other one I would recommend. There are a lot of sweeteners out there. If you like one of the other artificial sweeteners, I would encourage you to do research on them first. I know you've probably used them for years. You know, I don't have an issue, whatever. Equal, personally, I think is like the lesser of all the evils, as it were. But monk fruit is pretty safe, and stevia is pretty safe, guaranteed. But like the other things, last week we talked about agave and all that kind of stuff. That's great if you're doing a carb thing. If you're doing a carb thing, like that coconut sugar is carb thing. But this is just for one person, so we don't need a lot. So a couple of teaspoons will be perfect. Now, for some protein, and this, because it's got a tart taste, you don't want to add too much. But I'm just going to put, like, I'm using a teaspoon, so this is about a tablespoon of just to give it some protein. So a tablespoon of the Greek yogurt. And we've used this. Now, this is where, okay, we're gonna do two really cool things. The first one is, because we're trying to be a little bit healthy, we want it to be healthy. And I guarantee, I say this like, oh, if you make this, well, you're cheating a little bit. Well, okay, if it helps you feel better to think of that, fine. But everything I put in here so far is very good for you. Very good for you. So you can feel safe doing this. But if you're one of those people like me, and we talked about this before, one of the things I struggle with is getting my vegetables in. So I'm going to show you. This is lettuce. We're going to put a little of this, we did this last week too, I think, in our shake. Remember, we're making a berry shake, a totally delicious berry shake, because we want to have, you know, an ice creamy tasting kind of thing. So we'll put that in. Then we're going to be careful, because we have, look what we have. We have fluid in there already, which is a good thing to start. Last week, I think I put the lettuce in first, and when I was blending it, I discovered that didn't work so well. So yes, you can definitely put lettuce in, but put a little less for a treat like this, because if you put too much, you can taste it. But if you just put a little, then the berries overpower the flavor. But because we want it super creamy, I am using heavy whipping cream, and it is fine, because this is supposed to have fat in it. That gives you some little extra fat. It's good for your body. You're going to have this when you've had 2.5 to 3 hours between whatever you ate last, and you're going to wait another 2.5 to 3 hours to eat anything more. Just put yourself a little It's about 2 tablespoons. And, oh, no, you know what? I was going to say I'm going to pop a little more in, but I'm actually going to put some berries in first. Then we'll put our berries in. And I am putting, all right, hold on. It was up to, I added a couple berries, so now it's at the 12. But you probably can't see. I'm going to put my finger. It was, see, it's here now. It was just here a second ago. All right. So this gives us a clue how many berries we're adding. Okay. Let's put one more strawberry in. All right. So now, when we've got, it's up to, almost up to the top here, see? Now what I'm going to do, you're going to love this. I'm going to add just a touch more. Not a lot, like I did like 2 tablespoon size splashes. I'm just going to add a little bit for some extra creamy. Okay, I'm going to go over to my blender, which is on the other side of the kitchen. I will blend this up for you and show it to you, and we will take a sip together. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Looky, looky. Here is my mixed berry milkshake. It is so good. Okay, I gotta stop. So, that's how you can have a nice little treat. Now, I only put like 2 teaspoons of in, but I could have put 1 more, and then it would have been a little extra sweet. So that's the shake. Now, if you want to have berries with dinner type foods, berries goes very well with Parmesan cheese, blue cheese, chicken. I swear I saw some recipes that they put beef in it, but the easy thing that I know of is salads. And if you use lettuce and you put some berries in there, because berries can go, as we've seen, with both carbs and fats, you put some berries in there with your lettuce, and then you can put, you can even add tomatoes. Some people like to put purple onions, cut little teeny purple onions in there too. Some people like that. And you can put some Parmesan cheese on, make yourself a nice, use your monk fruit to make it, or your stevia, but make yourself a nice sweet vinaigrette type dressing to just lightly pour over that with your chicken chunks or something. You could, you could grind up some ground beef, mix up some ground beef and sprinkle that in too, and that would be great. And then you just mix it all up and you have a lovely salad. But be experimental. Send me a comment. Look up some recipes where you use berries to cook for dinner food. See what you can do with that. I would love to hear about that. And I will put some of those ideas in the description box as well, as long as both the recipes for our muffins that will be coming out in a little bit and for our shake. So, there's the one with the water, see? Here's the other one. So they didn't quite rise like I had hoped they would. So when I thought about it, what I figured out was I think I should use a 1/2 cup of yogurt. So when I put the recipe in, I will just say a 1/2 cup yogurt and not a whole cup yogurt. And the other thing probably would have been to not use those big strawberries. Because in the kind of berries that I had, they were too big. Now, I got those packs of berries I got from Aldi, and they work great for the smoothie thing. But for the muffins, you probably want to get berries from like a bigger grocery store. In our area, we have Safeway. Safeway has other names across the country, and I don't remember what they all are. But one of those larger companies, the ones I do know out in Texas, you've got HEB, In the Midwest, you've got Jewel and Dominic's. Dominic's is the equivalent to Safeway. But if you get your berries from there, then you get smaller chunks of strawberries. So that's what I learned with that. But let's see what they taste like. Maybe they're yummy. I'll cut them out of there and put them on a plate, and then we'll try one. Okay, now let me show you this. These are the ones that had the smaller berries in them. This one had one of those big strawberries at the bottom. That didn't quite make it as well. Oh my gosh. So, don't sweat the small stuff. This is great for breakfast. So I'm going to eat half of this and wrap it up and have the rest for breakfast tomorrow. Yum, yum, yum. Okay. If this was helpful for you, it was sure helpful for me. Then click that like button. If these kinds of videos are helpful for you, if this is a helpful tool for you, finding different options of things to eat that are healthy, please subscribe to my channel. Also, if you have young children, I love to read stories because that's the other half of my channel is I read stories to kids. So I would love to share with reading fun stories in your home. And thanks for joining me, guys. Bye.